Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Sebastian Dupuy, classical pianist, and this video will be on the 10 most difficult piano pieces ever written. So actually I asked GPT about what the list would be, and I just took the 10 example he gave. I changed one, it's the last one, because I realized this kind of list I can make 20 different lists, and there are so many different difficult pieces that it could be like forever finding the 10 most difficult. And then of course I will speak about this too. Difficulty is very relative, right? Because piece can be difficult because it's intense and short, or it can be difficult because it's difficult and long, or it can be a piece like the Liszt Sonata where you have difficult parts but a lot of rest in between, or it can be a difficult piece because it's a language you never learned. It's the first time you play Scriabin, it will be difficult, more difficult than if you played a lot of Chopin, for example. If you are good in octaves, some pieces with a lot of octaves can be easy for you, and for most of people difficult. So difficulty is very relative, and of course it will be the debate, I'm sure, in the comments. People will say, this is the wrong order, this is is more difficult than this, no way, this is more easy, blah blah blah. So I just picked 10, and I will leave you guys discuss and fight about if you think it's different. I will go from 10, the most easiest, to 1, the most difficult, in my opinion, and why. So actually I found out I have the score of most of pieces, and I played some and I never played some others. Some I practiced or sight read. So the number 10 is Busoni, the Fantasia Contrapuntistica. Now GPT was suggesting another piece from a composer I didn't know, so I decided to leave it out because I thought this one is actually one also that I like to share and I want people to know. It's a fantastic piece. It's a quite difficult one, and I would say the difficulty there is the fugues. And for people who practice fugues, you know why fugues are difficult. For those who didn't practice a fugue, and then you will know why. But in summary, it's just because a fugue has different voices that you have to follow all together. It makes it very complicated for fingerings, for making voice independence, so making one voice come out and the other a bit in background. That's very difficult. Sometimes it's with a middle finger and switch fingers, so it's quite difficult. And then Busoni brings the fugue on another level because it's romantic fugue, so it's like bigger fugues with more notes and more bigger dimension. And he's doing triple fugues, etc. But the piece in general starts a bit easy, right? It starts like. Then you have this typical Busoni stuff that comes in many other pieces. There are stuff that sounds difficult but are not so difficult. This stuff sounds tricky, complex, but are not so difficult. And then so a long part of the piece is not that difficult, and it gets difficult when you have the fugues, right? And actually I did a video on Busoni worth watching where I'm explaining with this fantasy and showing how the fugues are made. It's fascinating, it's fantastic, and he's mixing so many elements of different periods. He's mixing Bach with some bit modern stuff. It's getting on the limit of being not tonal anymore. So I think that's another difficulty, is the tonality, right? In Busoni it's very advanced tonality, makes it a bit tricky. And of course it's a long piece, so it makes it also difficult to keep this whole thing. Then playing one fugue is difficult to memorize. Well, fugue is, that's the other difficulty, is the memorization, right? Memorizing a fugue is quite challenging. There you have like 3 or 4, I don't remember, in a row, so that's why I think that's one of the very difficult, the top 10, number 10. Number 9 is Godowsky, the Chopin Etudes. So, of course, if you speak about all the etudes, that's in itself such a huge work that it's probably number 1. But if you speak about specific etudes, one etude is difficult, but it's not as difficult as like the pieces will come later. And there also depends which etude, of course. Some etudes are a bit more easy than others, but in general it's a quite challenging etudes. We know Chopin etudes are difficult, and this is just the next level because Godowsky made a transcription of most of all the Chopin etudes. Sometimes he made even 5 different transcriptions or modification of one etude. One of the very difficult things he's doing is he's doing some of the etude of Chopin for the left hand alone. For example, this number 4 of Chopin, he's doing for left hand alone. So I'm sight reading this, I never practice this. So that's quite challenging because you have chords and a melody that normally is for 2 hands in 1 hand. He's doing a lot of them like this, and then he even have at the end he has this double etudes where he's combining two Chopin etudes in one. So one hand is doing one etude and the other hand the other etude, and it's matching harmonically. Actually, it's quite fun. There are etudes like the number 5 where he's doing a lot of different variations. So he's doing one in the waltz form, I think. He's doing another one in the mazurka form. There are etudes where he's adding a lot of stuff. So they are quite challenging too, but it's mostly short pieces and I think mostly feasible. Number 8 is Scriabin 5th Sonata. There again, the difficulty is a bit relative. I think the main difficulty here is the tonality that switched. So it's one of the first sonata where Scriabin starts to leave tonality, because before it's quite tonal and he's leaving this. And at the end, actually, he even stops writing flats and sharps in the beginning because he doesn't follow the tonality anymore. So this one is starting like this. Also never played it, but it's one I sight read sometimes. These crazy chords all the same going up. Then it's getting a bit more chilly. So of course that's not that difficult, but then comes this difficult part here with this chord. Jumps, these strange chords, this rhythm, Scriabin rhythm can be very difficult too. It's a sonata, so it has a specific form, it's a bit longer also, and it's never really resting. That's a difficulty in itself too, except for the places where it's a bit slow. So for those who learn Scriabin, I remember I learned the second sonata and I wanted to make a little challenge, having it memorized in 1 month, and I didn't succeed because one of the reasons I didn't practice so much Scriabin, so it's a new language, I struggled a bit learning it by heart. The other thing is, I don't know, it's a bit a complex language, it's always changing, it's not, it's difficult to catch a pattern in Scriabin works, it's very improvised. So this is a kind of invisible difficulty you notice once you start practicing it. So that's why it's number 8. Number 7, and that's actually probably the reason for most of modern music, it's Ligeti Etude number 13, L'Escalier du Diable. And I would say Ligeti, his etudes, or in general modern music, has a new kind of difficulty. It's polyrhythmic, no tonality, strange measure. For example, here is 12/8, but it's not really divided. He makes these little total points here. And that's, I never memorized it, I even never practiced it. I had a quick look to some. And I had the feeling when I wanted to learn them, I had the feeling this will be a nightmare to memorize because there is just no visible structure. Maybe there is one once you practice it, you analyze it, you see it, but it looks so not random, but because I'm sure there's a system, but it's a system you struggle to see directly, so this will make it difficult to learn too. And then he goes to some crazy extremes because he goes from, I just see here, 4 fortes, I think it's in one of these pieces where he go to, yeah, this one, 6 fortes, so that's like super, super, super loud. And then I think it's in this piece where he goes to the super piano, or maybe it's in another one. I made a short about this. Well, just if you see this, I think you understand why it's difficult, right? It's scary just to watch. So L'Escalier du Diable, I actually have no idea how it's really working. I remember it's of course a stair feeling. Let me try read this. Notice there is a system. Actually, you hear the system once you start practicing it. So again, I'm sure you can find out the system and it gets easier once you practice it, but this is the kind of stuff that gives you kind of headache to memorize. And I would say that, by the way, there the technical side is maybe not the most difficult, but the accuracy and rhythmical steadiness, clearness, I think is one of the difficult stuff. And actually, there are more difficult etudes of Ligeti than this one, I think. There is this one, the number 9, Vertige. I think that's a very difficult. Just there are also, this one I was reading a bit and I realized there is no way you can memorize this because you have double notes on both hands going completely crazy with no really connection in between the hands. Yeah. Number 6 is Rachmaninoff third piano concerto, and that's why I said it's difficult to classify stuff, because this piece is so long. It's 45 minutes, 43 minutes of very dense piano music, of very difficult passages. But in itself, if you study one page of this concerto or even 4 pages, it's not the most difficult music written, right? Rachmaninoff actually has a very pleasant music to play. Mostly you see he was a fantastic pianist because his music is very pianistic and playable if you are a pianist. Now, if you're not a pianist, it's harmonically quite challenging and difficult, and actually even for a pianist, his harmonics goes far. It's more excessive than Chopin and Liszt. It's a bit more gets towards the modern, right? Sometimes it's difficult to really understand the harmonies and the sight reading also is very difficult this piece, because a lot of flats and sharps, and there are so many notes you tend to forget which sharps and flats were in the beginning of the measure if you are in the middle of the measure. So this piece is actually, I would say, the third movement is a big challenge, and if you are in the third movement, you have already done the first and the second movement, which are heavy movements. There are some physical, or there is a cadence actually, of course, which is a little etude in itself. That's difficult. It's fast. It's like difficult to be precise. But in some ways, once you have memorized it, it's quite playable. Like I didn't play this for, I don't know, a very long time, and it's always kind of there in your hands. You kind of feel it. I struggled memorizing some places. I remember, like this place, I struggled memorizing. Left hand is quite remote, it's never the same. The right hand is switching, going up and down. This kind of stuff is a bit tricky. But there the difficulty is the length of the piece and the energy you need almost always, because there's almost no rest in this piano concerto. Short interruptions to talk to you about my app. It's created for guys like you. It's made to motivate you to practice more, so you can track your practice. There is a timer, there is a stopwatch, there's a reminder, you can set a goal, you can practice reading notes in 7 cleaves. There are different note exercises that will come later. There is a random one, there is ear training, there's many different stuff. There is rhythm coming soon too. The design will be remade soon. You will see here the new design. It's still the old design now. On the date of the video, it's still the old design, but soon is a new design there. There will be Android soon. It's not yet there, but soon. So for the moment, it's iOS. Just download the app. Give me feedback. Let me know what you want to see on the app. It's made for you. Number 5 would be Chopin Etude number 2. So we come close to the most difficult pieces here in the second half. And the simple reason there is just you're practicing the weak fingers, 3, 4, 5, right? So this whole etude is about using 4 and 5 for a chromatic scale and doing chords with your 1 and 2. Practice this etude. This is kind of sight reading. Of course, I've read this before. And there again, I come to my first point about difficulty. Depends how you will play this etude. If you play this etude like I just played it, this tempo, it will not be a very difficult etude. It will be feasible. Of course, you will have to practice, but there are pianists like Shishkin, for example, is playing this etude so fast, there you just wonder, that's just impossible. And then the etude gets impossible and gets one of the most difficult pieces ever written. So that's also why it's always very relative. Depends how fast and how good you play a piece, and then how fine you want to get details coming out and everything, right? But it's still a very difficult piece, of course. It's one of the difficult of the whole etude set, with maybe the number 11 of the second opus. Number 4, I think it's not a surprise. Gaspard de la Nuit from Ravel is one of the most difficult pieces ever written for many reasons. Just for example, the tonality. It has 7 sharps. It's a difficult tonality, right? Everything is sharp. It's also difficult to hear if you're not used. Ravel has very advanced harmony. He's a pianist of sound, so the whole difficulty I find with playing Ravel, and actually I didn't play a lot except Jeu d'eau, and I sight read a bit Gaspard de la Nuit, but I can hear it when I hear his music. It's all about creating sounds, waves of sounds, right? And it has too much. And if you had a scale or an arpeggio, you don't want to sound it like an arpeggio, you want to sound like a fluid wave that's like creating this atmosphere. And I think also that's probably the huge difficulty in this piece here, because if you play it too mechanical or too technical, it sounds directly boring. Then you have this first challenging already rhythmical here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So get this clear with not missing note, because you will easily, by repeating these chords, will easily miss one note that will not come out clearly, or it will be too loud because it's triple piano. It has to be super soft with pedal, with both pedal even, right? And then you have the melody coming here. I'm already struggling with the rhythm on the left hand, on the right hand, who is not matching the right hand. And that's not even the difficult part. You have this middle part who is a bit more softer, a bit slower, maybe that's a bit slightly more easy, but then you have this scarbo, which, if you don't know how to start, like, what is this? What chord is it? You have these repeated notes here that comes all the time, and that's creating a huge difficulty with repetition, precision. That's something I don't even can sight read, it's too difficult. So that's definitely one of the most difficult pieces ever written. And we come to the top 3 now. So in the top 3 you have Balakirev Islamey, and that's actually also a piece I don't know. I have never read it, I think. I have heard recordings, of course, of many people, like including colleagues who played this. I don't know why it's difficult, but I think it's the complexity, again, of harmony. Probably I have also an intuition that Balakirev, not being a pianist, I think, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't think he was a very good pianist. I'm actually quite sure. It's probably also not very pianistic, which happens with a lot of pieces, like with people who could play piano but who are not fantastic pianists. An example, for example, is First Piano Concerto of Tchaikovsky, which I could have put in the list at this stage, I think, also. I played Tchaikovsky, that's what I'm talking about, so I know what I mean. It's just, there are a lot of chords that are not really comfortable. It's just very easy stuff like this, right? If you have a lot of stuff like this, except if you have very big hands, there's always a stretch because 1 and 2 are very close, and if you have a lot of chords like this, it gets uncomfortable and you get tired quite fast. And I think Balakirev, it's a bit the same thing. Now, when I look at the score, you see it's dark of black notes. It's a lot of octaves and jumps on the left hand. It's a lot of chromatic, strange stuff like... And that, again, stuff that are not, I think, very pianistic, or it doesn't fall in your hands very easily. So I think this is just a complicated piece by nature. Yeah, okay, I see, like, there's a lot of stuff. I don't even know how you would play this, like... Then it scales with a melody on the left. I think it's one of the pieces going all over the place, but actually, just listen to the piece or just watch someone playing the piece. I think you will have an idea why this is so difficult. Now, no big surprise that in the top 3 we have Liszt, because Liszt, being one of the most fantastic pianists that ever lived, according to actually everyone, and his transcriptions and paraphrases being famous as being the most complicated things ever written, for a simple reason that I think he was improvising them very often, and then it's a very personal way of playing things. And because he has amazing abilities of improvising, technical, and because he pushed technique so far also for his, not only for his period, but still for today, actually. So no surprise, it's Liszt. And one of the one GPT suggests is Don Giovanni of Mozart, which I indeed think is one of the most difficult one. Now, there are, of course, the less famous transcription paraphrase of Liszt that are also very difficult. For example, there's this Donizetti transcription of La Sonnambula, which has these strange scales in 4/5 and thirds mixed, which is almost impossible to play. But I must say, they are not his best transcriptions, so maybe I think it's a good idea to not mention them as most difficult, because yeah, music is an element in itself. So the Don Giovanni is definitely a very wild one, with stuff like just the first chord are. Then you have the chords with a trill inside. So the switching to the trill and having chords is a difficult thing. This also. Stuff like this. You have tons of octaves. You have these chromatic scales that just nobody can do actually. And that if you play too slow and too rhythmic, gets super boring. Like it sounds like an exercise, which you don't want to have in the transcription of Liszt. It should flow. Actually, probably the best recording of this piece is Lang Lang in Carnegie Hall. It sounds just natural. Everything flows. It goes fast when it needs. It's very melodic when it needs. And then the ending of this piece is quite a nightmare too. Well, there are a lot of like scales in fourths here. Also quite difficult. It's fast and fluid. You have this super fast chromatic scale. If thing starting here. It's also long. It's like it takes a while. It's getting more and more intense and loud. It doesn't stop, and yeah. So there I would say the length is again also a difficulty, because if it was this for 3 minutes, it would be quite okay. But it's for I think 18 minutes or 20 minutes almost. One of the tricky lists. Norma is also one. I would say I would put it on the same level as this. And then number one, you can guess which one ChatGPT put on number one. And actually there I agreed, because that's my number one. That's the piece I practiced, and I didn't practice many of these pieces. But that's the piece I practiced, and I practice all the Liszt etudes. But Feux, Follets, so there's this one. Feux, Follets is the most difficult of the 12 etudes, and it's the only one that I didn't completely master till now. I'm still hoping to do it one day. I have no recording of this, by the way. And for a very little reason, actually, just for this reason here. This is just one of the most complicated things I've ever practiced, and I never really get it on a nice speed or completely relaxed. Now, there are tons of pianists who can do it, like fantastic pianists. And I think basically if you can play Feux, Follets on a satisfying level, and music, also it's not a typical etude, it's a very nice music piece actually. So I think it's one of the most finished etude of Liszt and less etude of Liszt. Now it's very technical, of course, so in this sense it's an etude, but it's a very nice blend of chords, diminished sevenths and effects that are really nice. Because I agree, sometimes Liszt can sound a bit like technical and heavy, right? But they're totally not. So that's one of his best etudes, I think, and one of the most difficult. And there's a lot of difficulties there. It's not only this passage too. We have this melody on the left, and you have this jump, which are a bit of a challenge too. You have this, which is a crossing hands problem difficulty. You have this kind of impossible left hand with octaves in the beginning. Then you have this chords with inverted chromatic scales. Like and there, that's again what I said in the beginning. The challenge there is the density. It's like, I would say it's as difficult as Rachmaninoff 3. It will take less time to learn because there's less pages and it's less long, but to get this on a perfect level, and you have so little time to make it happen, because Rachmaninoff you can warm up a bit. You start like this, and then it gets a bit more complicated, but it's progressive. So you get in the piece slowly, and you're warmed up to get to the difficult places, right? Here you have no warm up. It's like starting directly, and you have to be on top of your condition on the first note, right? So yeah, I think that's the most difficult piece ever written. And then if you listen to some recordings of these pieces, like for example, there is Cyprien Katsaris or Kissin, who has very fast recordings of this. And I think in an etude, you can go very fast. It's an etude, it's made for this, right? It's even the title, Feux, Follets, it's flames, it's fire, it's made to go fast. So I think that's one of the things, like the etude number 2 of Chopin, depending on the speed you play it, it will become either feasible or impossible. And it's also like the etude number 2 of Liszt has the same kind of problem. It's very short, very dense. depending the speed and the energy and the fire you want to reach in this piece, it gets just impossible. And for me, this piece is just impossible. While the other pieces, I feel with practice enough, I will get them on a nice level. And I have the feeling this one, I'll probably never be happy with how I'm playing it. So yeah, again, like I said, it's super subjective. I'm sure we can put other pieces on the top 3 or even in the bottom, or we could say that the Busoni is actually more difficult than Follets. Stuff we can discuss. Let me know what you think. Like I'm curious what people will come up with this time. Just be nice in the comments. I think that's just standard stuff on YouTube. We're there to have fun, right? I'm sharing my opinion. It's nice to discuss this stuff. Let me know your top 3 in the comments. I'm curious what will come there, because there are probably a lot of pieces I didn't think about. And when you mention, I will say, oh yeah, of course, these. So yeah, there's so many pieces also. And then there is also so many unknown pieces that are probably super difficult and we don't know about. And just playing, for example, Moonlight Sonata, the first movement, on a very good level and creating nice music is also very difficult. So it's not just technique that's difficult. Some nice soft music is sometimes also very difficult. So that's another aspect I didn't explore. I hope you like it. Like the video, this helps, and subscribe and send it to people. Share it if you like it, and hope to see you next video.